I was just on a trip recently and we had to fly. It's kind of incredible that we actually can fly. I mean, people aren't meant to fly.
No, I mean, that was invented when like the early 1900s by the Wright brothers in Ohio.
Yeah. A lot of people thought that was impossible, like that you couldn't do it. I mean, so like, was it Da Vinci tried to invent something back in the day that didn't work?
That was stupid. He did like a stupid little like washer agitator on top of the thing.
The idea of heavier than air flight like just wasn't a thing, and it's now a thing.
Yeah, like now it's impossible to travel without flight or car. Automobiles is a good invention too. That should never even been existed either, right? Let's talk about this on this.
We'll talk about inventions, particularly ones that people thought were impossible. I'm Crollur.
And I'm Willy. Welcome to today's episode.
Without the internal combustion engine.
Steam engines.
Yeah, steam engines came first, but without the internal combustion engines, like an actual automobile wouldn't be possible. Because the only transportation up till then was these giant steam engines.
And before that, it was horse and buggies. All right, we're going to talk about this. I'm actually really excited about this episode.
I mean, what do you think is another type of thing that would that people would think was impossible back in the day?
Well, I'm not going to go too far back in the day, but I know when they were inventing the helicopters, with the way the rotors work on top and having a back roller that went like this way, a lot of people didn't think it would actually work. But what those propellers did was it would fight. It would push air up to get it to moving up. Then that back wheel would cause it to, lean forward or back. And people didn't think it was going to be done because they were inventing those helicopters back, in like mid-post World War II. And they were using it only in World War II. But then they're like, well, this is actually working. We're going to actually stick with this. And then they made the helicopters.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with a helicopter is the fact that just the propellers that
it runs on hydraulics. It runs on hydraulics.
Spin in circles.
Yeah, it runs on hydraulics too. So if one air hose or one hydraulic hose pop off, it just throws everything off on it. That's why you hear on the news all the time about helicopter crashes because something like that would happen. They're easy to. One thing goes wrong with the helicopter, it crashes.
But speaking of flight and stuff, our exploration into space is another one that's like. Nobody thought we would ever touch the sky or touch the stars. And we still haven't because we haven't gotten close enough to actually get to the sun. But we're out there.
Why would we want to?
Yeah,
that's radiation, poisoning, all kinds of stuff will go wrong on that. But there's a movie coming out. There's like talking about like the whole like fake landing on the moon. I'm actually excited about that because I want to watch it.
I still think we did go. I mean,
I know
there are multiple proofs of it, and a lot of things that are too hard to explain otherwise. I'm sure this movie will gloss over them.
But once we got like rockets into space, no one would know that they were getting more high tech on like space shuttles, bigger what do they call bigger satellites, bigger telescopes. Now we can actually see things farther out in space than what we did.
Yeah, a lot of people think that a lot of that's fake, but what they're actually doing, fake. I mean, technically some of the images are like, I wouldn't call it fake as so much as altered, because what they do is they take data and they make it presentable to people.
Yep.
Because things you can't see, like infrared and UV light, you can't see that.
I mean, like,
but they take that data and then make it into something we can see.
Look at MRI scanners.
Yeah, that's another one where things you can't see they make into seeable data. You were saying about the MRI scanners and all.
Yeah, the MRI scanners. They're showing images that we would never even see before. They're showing like MRIs. Like I don't know how they make them, but those were considered like I think they run on electromagnetic stuff, and they're able to draw. The computer's able to draw what's going on, with the MRI scan.
I was watching a video about from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about ships and how important it is that somebody invented a ship that actually weighed more, that was where the material it was built with is more dense than water because of how cannonballs like strike it. Because you make it out of wood. Obviously, wood floats on water.
Yeah.
But cannonballs rip through wood like crazy.
Yeah, and then you get shrapnel.
So the person who invented a metal ship changed a lot in warfare. Naval warfare in particular. When he's talking about it, he's like, the reason why it works is because the average of everything that's floating there is lighter than water. The steel that makes it up might be denser than water and would sink on its own, but you got air inside that ship.
I'm glad you were talking about that because steel was a big invention that changed everything too.
I mean, it is, but I don't know. I don't really know who invented steel.
Yeah,
I mean,
it don't matter.
Multiple places came out with steel because I mean they had steel swords in like England and in Japan and
yeah, but steel was used for everything. It's kind of like for example, like concrete changed a lot of things too.
Oh God, I just had a flashback to the Flintstones.
Yeah, concrete changed a lot of things too because
the old terrible Flintstones movie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name it after my daughter Concretia.
Yeah, concrete. But there's other things other than concrete that you can use. You can use sandstone. But the problem with sandstone is that it's very
sandstone also wears down.
Yeah, it wears down over time. Concrete, it wears down, but at a slower state. The biggest invention that really was thought impossible was fire.
Technically, fire was never invented. It was harnessed.
Yeah, it was harnessed, but
fire existed without humans.
Yeah, but what can you do with fire?
A lot of things.
Yeah, you can cook with it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Cook, heat. Cook, heat, smelt. You dry things out.
That is like one invention that changed the world.
As I've already said.
Well, not invention, harvesting.
Oh, you know what's another good invention that reminds me of fire? A light bulb.
Oh, Thomas Edison's light bulb.
Because we had candles up till then.
It's funny because a lot of people are giving
lanterns.
credit to Benjamin Franklin for the discovering electricity, but Thomas Edison was the one that actually understood how electricity worked.
Yeah, it's a household name around here, but yet, so there's supposedly a quote about that. After he kept failing, he's like, "I didn't fail so many times. I just invented ways of not doing it."
So I think the first light bulb was a incandescent bulb.
Yeah, now we got LEDs and fluorescents.
Yeah, LED is another invention that people thought was impossible because LEDs. It changed a lot of things because you're saving energy, but you're getting a brighter light.
I think that's one of those accidental inventions. But I can't remember the story on it. I think they were trying to invent something else and invented an LED.
The wheel was like a fucking good invention.
I don't think anybody thought that was impossible, but the wheel was probably one of the greatest inventions.
Well, think about it. Back in the day before the wheel was even made, they would just take logs and just roll things along.
I think that's where the idea came from.
Yeah.
Because even before that, they probably just dragged stuff.
Yeah, they would take, like logs and just roll things around. Then they would take the back log, remove it. And it would suck for the people in the, that's the one that had to pick that log up and move it back to the front.
I mean, theoretically, that's probably the way to do it because if you got to create a wheel, why not just make it out of something that already is wheel shaped? Right?
Right.
Logs are circular already.
And now, even we still use a wheel today.
Yeah.
You're using wheels on everything, like pulley systems. You're using it on everything. Like using it on pulley systems, those are wheels, pulley wheels, right?
Yeah.
Using it on tires, you use it on motors, you use it on everything, dude. Imagine if we didn't have a wheel. Do you think a rectangle or no, not rectangle, a square would work?
That goes back a few years. I think it was a few years. It was at least a year ago. About the what do we have more of, doors or wheels? I mean, it depends on what your definition of a wheel is. So if you're counting pulleys and if you're counting like pulleys,
it's still a wheel. It's a wheel with a freaking belt.
Yeah, and you got bearings are also technically wheels.
Can you imagine?
Gears could technically be wheels.
They are, but they have teeth on them where it catches.
They're just
onto
teeth
the belt.
wheels.
Yeah, teeth
wheels of teeth.
Yeah, but you think they had that before they invented the wheel?
What, gears?
Yeah.
I do not think they invented gears before wheels.
Yeah.
I think wheels were before that. Because as you said, they used to use logs. And logs were essentially just long wheels.
And then they got like I have a bunch of people do manual labor. And that's what catapults were used on, was logs. To get the transport of the catapult over to where they wanted, they would use logs to move it. But then they slowly
all these modern catapults are historically inaccurate. Because
no,
they all have wheels.
I'm not saying they're historically inaccurate.
They all have wheels.
They all started out before, the actual wheels. You ever watch Game of Thrones? They would use logs to move things around.
Oh, I know.
Then we're talking about iron earlier, like swords and stuff like that. What was bigger than that was freaking bows.
I almost thought you were about to say bronze. We'll circle back to bronze here.
Yeah, we'll circle back to bronze. But the arrow is still used today. Bow and arrows.
Yeah, but mostly for recreational use. Unless they're practicing a culture that's not as modern.
No, it's not that, because they make compound bows and stuff like that.
Yes, but even then, it's almost always for recreational.
No, the reason why they use it is because they're quiet. They're quieter than shooting a gun. Like, let's say I shoot a compound bow and I miss something. It's not end of the world, because whatever the thing I miss is going to run away, but everything out there didn't hear it. But if you shoot a gun, everything's going to be like,
you'll let me know when you see a police officer using a bow.
They're not going to, no. No, that's why they use those, they use, the first weapon is using voice. Second weapon is a taser. Third weapon, if it gets,
Remember the good old days when they had batons?
Yeah, batons. Like British people, they just start beating people in the head with it.
Oh, God. But no, if we circle back to what I thought you were about to say, bronze, it was actually probably one of the first steps in smelting.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the Greek people actually thought bronze was more valuable than iron, because bronze was shinier than iron.
Yeah.
And maybe if they went all the way to steel, that would have been different. But
depending on how you smelled it, iron, if you do it right, it won't break.
I'm surprised they didn't use gold. They probably didn't use gold because it was too soft.
Gold is brittle. It's easy to snap gold. If you do 100% gold, it snaps. That's why you see a line chains made in 10 karat, 20 karat, because gold is very brittle. And they usually use gold as the outer part of the, whatever's inside of the material.
Oh, that reminds me of the Egyptians.
Yeah.
The Egyptians, they actually invented a rudimentary battery, and they used it for gold plating things.
Yeah.
For electroplating gold onto things. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, Egyptians...
Because that was way back before modern batteries were invented.
Well, the people that was running Egypt at the time, they wanted everything to look, like goddess. So they would use gold because, in the cats. Remember, you see all the things with cats and stuff like that? They thought gold was a material from the gods. And so was cats. So they, a lot of paintings you see is gold and cats.
So what other inventions do you want to talk about?
Navigation.
Navigation? I mean, there are a lot of things to talk about in navigation.
Yeah, we're talking about steel, and they were making boat or ships back in the day. But you know what item that they used just to navigate them?
I think probably one of the earlier things, because they used to navigate by the stars. They would use a sextant.
Okay,
that was a pretty cool invention because they used a star.
They look at the North Star, know that's north, and then they would go with that.
Yeah. They'd use that to know exactly what direction they need to go.
During the day, you don't have that.
Yeah, but then you'd use the sun.
Oh, okay. I got you.
The sun goes east and west.
Well, it was a cool invention to solve all that problems. On direction was a compass. Running on magnetic,
The magnetic North Pole was probably... Figuring that out was probably pretty good.
That was crazy that they even... me, let's say we didn't have all that. Do you think me or you would have figured that out?
Me or you? Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't think crazy. So, but somebody did.
Yeah, someone did. And that, like, inventors are freaking smart, dude.
Here's an interesting thing, though. Apparently, the magnetic poles might shift, either tilt or even flip completely. So north might be south and south might be north. That's an interesting thing that might make compasses a little less accurate.
They use compasses for everything, like map reading, everything.
Do you know what else on the cruise? They actually have a compass in the thing. Like they have all these satellite navigation systems. They still have a hard, like a hard compass sitting there as part of their navigation in case everything else fails.
Yep, EMP or something like that causes it to go out. You know, they know where to go.
I actually got to tour a bunch of the places back behind the scenes of the place. And it was pretty cool being able to see the bridge of the ship.
How was that like?
Cool, but anticlimactic. Because it was basically just a room with 3 desks on it, one for port, one for the stern, and then one in the center for them to basically control the entire ship. Apparently, they can turn that ship in like a 360-degree turn. They actually did it while we were taking pictures of one of the glaciers. To go back on topic a little bit, compasses. I learned how to use a compass when I was a kid.
A compass don't work good by itself unless you have a map. I mean, you can use a compass, figure out north, south, east, and west.
There's a couple of ways to use a compass if you're lost. One is to find a continuous direction to go, so you're not doing circles, because you'd be surprised. People tend to walk in circles.
When you see cartoons where you see people like the Crude movie, right, where that stupid caveman, the dad, kept going around circles in the cave. Perfect example.
Yeah, people actually naturally walk in circles. Mythbusters, I think it was Mythbusters, did this where they blindfolded themselves. They found out they walked in a curved line naturally. So that's one of the ways you get a compass is to walk in a straight line, or you can use it to get the degree of whatever direction you need to go.
I see what you're saying though, because like if I was lost, I would walk in a circle because I would like wrap around the territory.
So the best way to get unlost is use a compass to go in a straight line. Because you'll eventually find something somewhere. Whereas if you're not using a compass,
it gets worse.
If you don't have a compass, by the way, a good tip here is to find something in the distance is in front of you, walk towards that, and then find something straight in front of you again and walk towards that. Because if you're walking towards something, you're less likely to go in a circle. Whereas if you're just walking what you think is straight, you will go in a circle.
I always go in circles.
The next big thing I can think of in navigation is GPS, which we've already talked about, satellite navigation.
What started out before GPS? That's why
What do you have something that's before GPS?
Yeah.
What is it?
Morse code and radio.
I don't know if those are necessarily navigation,
Frequency.
but those are important tools to have on a ship. Morse code and radio don't help you navigate anywhere, but they do help you communicate with people who can help you.
Yeah.
And if you know where you're at, they can help you find out how to get back, or they can help you identify where you're at.
The reason why I put that in there, because with the Morse code and radio, it led into more inventions later on, like computers.
Speaking of Morse code, though, I think one of our most famous and probably most useful Morse code bits came from a tragic event.
What was that?
The Titanic, the sinking of the Titanic.
Oh yeah.
Because they could not type out.
You are. Then
they could not type out "save our ship," so they typed in SOS, and now SOS is pretty much the emergency signal.
Morse code is like a language. You have to, really understand it.
There are sequences for each letter of the alphabet and then each number up.
But the problem is, it's not like ... for A, right? Well, yeah, that is Morse code for A. Remember, like back in the day, they were using like fire hoses to take down fire. Like when a house is on fire, they would use like fire hose, like back in the 1800s. Now we have fucking fire extinguishers.
I mean, they still use fire hoses, though.
They do if it's like, but like, let's say, like for example, back in the day when your kitchen catches on fire, a person doesn't know what to do, so they would grab a bucket and just like start, doing this, try to put the fire out, but water doesn't.
Honestly, not every fire can be put out by water.
No, not at all.
I think it's funny that a lot of people don't understand this concept.
Yeah.
Funny but tragic. I will say that. Funny but tragic. Because some people's houses might burn down because of their ignorance.
I can't imagine someone like, oh, we're gonna throw water onto a oil fire and it makes it worse.
My thing is they've come out with this new thing. It's essentially just a new variation of what's already been out there. People used to douse fires by putting like towels over them to smother the fire, which works so long as you don't catch the towel on fire. Usually, if you make it damp, it works. But they made this one that's flame resistant, and you basically you just throw it over the fire, the kitchen fire, and it puts it out. They're showing these it's an infomercial as I was seeing, and they're showing these absolutely horrid freakouts before they use this thing. And I'm like, the people that are freaking out about this fire aren't going to think to grab this towel. Okay? I can't remember, it was something blanket or something towel, like, but you have to grab it and throw it over the fire. These people are so dumb that they take the fire, put it in the sink, and like, I'm like, if that's their mentality, do you honestly think that this flame retardant towel blanket thing is going to help them? No. They're going to forget to grab the damn thing.
I'm going to talk about something that you're more experienced with, like give or take, right? So let's talk about the evolution of the camera. We came from like back in the day where they would like take pictures of like a portrait on the camera, but they'll be upside down on the lens, and then get framed that way. Then we're gonna go through the evolution of that because I'm kind of curious. Well,
the thing is, most of my detail comes from SLR and DSLR lenses. I don't know the old timey cameras that had to they had to have the whole hood and all that other stuff.
Oh yeah, right.
But those interest me, but not enough to do research on them. But what you're referring to is pretty much an SLR, I think, where the image comes in, it hits a mirror, and it goes up, and then it hits another mirror, which reflects it again, and it comes out the viewfinder.
Yeah, but you think that was a great invention that changed everything? Because that did change a lot of things. Where now, now phones have cameras on them now. Back in the day, they went from like having those like umbrella things. Then it led into like Polaroids, where you had to shake the freaking thing.
You never had to shake it. Shaking it was just a waste time as it developed.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know why people actually thought you had to shake it. You didn't. It didn't do anything. It would work perfectly fine if you let it sit there.
But I think that led in like printers too, like digital printers and, all that stuff.
Polaroids are essentially self-developing film. Where the old style cameras that I'm used to, which are SLRs, are basically like a negative, and it shines light onto the film, and the film captures it, and then you have to take that and develop it onto an actual photo.
Is that what the Red Room is for?
Yes.
But what about the ones that actually like printed it out like really quick? That's the SRS.
Those are typically Polaroids or a digital camera. Because they did go digital, and those actually literally take an image and print it.
You had to replace the ink every so often.
Yeah.
You still have Polaroids?
Now you get DSLRs, which are digital. Nowadays, instead of going onto a film that you have to develop, now it saves to a memory card, and it goes onto a photosensitive image detector that works similar to your eye and just makes an image out of it that gets digitized. And then from there, they went mirrorless, which essentially, the mirror, the whole point of the mirror
the mirror was a great invention, by the way.
The whole point of the mirror was so that you could see what you were taking a picture of. The image would come in, and rather than hitting the film, it would bounce up off of it, and then bounce off of another mirror into the little viewfinder. That's all it was. So in every camera back from that era, the mirror, when you went to take a picture, it flipped up. It actually flipped up out of the way so you could take a picture.
we're going to wrap it up. This is going to be the last one we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Well, it's not really an invention, but it's an idea. The idea was the elements of the periodic table. Was that a genius idea, or you think, why we use it today?
Categorizing the elements is actually a pretty good idea. I honestly do not have a clue who invented the actual table.
Yeah, I'll tell you here in a second. It's Dmitry Mendelov in 1869 at a Russian chemical society. It wasn't the first periodic table, but it was first to gain worldwide acceptance from the scientific community. He had the idea of it, and someone else, did it.
So it's a good idea that we, especially with the way it is now, because it actually represents so many different things. Like one side versus the other are highly reactive to each other, and then they're all lined up from atoms, from the amount of atoms they have, or amount of, I shouldn't say atoms, the amount of, is it neutrons or electrons? I think it's electrons.
I think it's electrons. Because the more electrons it has, the less brittle it is, right?
So yeah, it's divided by it's divided up, and each side represents one end of the spectrum, and then top to bottom is how many electrons.
Yeah, because I know that you're excited about chemistry, so that's why.
Back in the day, I'm less now. More, I'm into computers now, but it was a thing I liked back in the day. But speaking of the periodic table elements, one element that still bothers me is aluminum, or aluminium.
Yeah, that's a man-made metal.
Because of the fact that we call it one thing because that's what it was originally called, and then for scientific purposes, they changed the name to match the other elements. Scientifically, it's aluminium because of the fact that all the other ones that were metals like it were inium at the end.
Okay, so when you say aluminum, it's like a mixture of other things that makes it
aluminum. No, it's just how we pronounce it because that's its original name before people changed it.
Okay.
They changed it to fit in.
We're going to fit in. We're going to make it aluminum. We're going to wrap everything up, and we're going to talk about, on the next podcast, what you want to talk about?
Disabilities and ableism.
All right, we'll talk about that.
Well, I've been Crollur.
And I'm Willy.
Peace.
Oh, you want to hear a good one? Language.
Language has been invented multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, why everyone speaks different languages, in every country.